Hi to everyone who's just starting to join us. We'll just wait 1 minute just to give everyone a chance to come into the meeting, and then we'll kick it off. Okay, so I think everybody's got a chance to come in from the waiting room there. I'm sure people will join us throughout. So a warm welcome to everybody who's logged on. So today we are here to talk about a day in the life of a supply chain employee. So we have three amazing speakers here today who are going to give you an insight into what a day in their life is like, a little bit about how they got into the industry, and kind of what you can expect. Or I suppose it's very hard for us all to say what you can expect when everything is so different every day, but a little bit of an insight into all their experience. So I'll introduce myself first. My name is Megan Yeates. I'm best known as the gold medal winner in the freight forwarding competition in Worldskills Kazan in 2019. I am a logistics skills champion representative and ambassador in Ireland. I also work as the apprentice coordinator for the Transport Operations and Commercial Driving Apprenticeship and the Logistics Associate Apprenticeship. So I'm going to call on each of our speakers here today to give us their name, the company they're in, their position, and just a little quick intro to themselves. So Gabriella, if you want to kick us off there first, that would be great. Thanks.
Yes, sure. So my name is Gabriela. I am a supply chain manager at Easons.com. I have a bachelor in public relationship, and I have a post graduation in design thinking and innovation. I also have specialized on data analysis and on supply chain, of course.
Thank you so much. And Emma, if you want to come in next.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma and I'm a buyer planner for Waters Corporation in Wexford. Actually, when I agreed to do this, I was actually a specialist, but I've changed role in the meantime, so I'm kind of learning as I go along. So I'll just talk you through my previous role and my role now. I think is the best thing to do.
Perfect. Thank you, Emma. And Keith?
Hi everyone, my name is Keith Anu. I'm warehouse manager at Mitchell and Son. I graduated from the LAA apprenticeship in 2022, and I'm currently doing my Bachelor's of Honours in Supply Chain Management in IT Carlo.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. So as you can see already, there has been people from different backgrounds. We have already, within the last couple of weeks since we even originally met, people progressing in their roles. So it just goes to show you how varied and exciting an industry it is. So the second question I would like to pose to our panel is then, maybe if each of you want to just introduce your company a little bit more. Some people might be already familiar. I'd say Gabriella Easons, I'm sure many people have heard of it already, but just to give them a little bit more of an insight. And then Emma and Keith as well, yours might be a little bit more unknown to those who are joining us today. So it'd be good for them to just understand what is your company in general, and then what is their supply chain like. So Gabriella, we'll let you kick it off as the easiest one first.
Sure. So Easons is a retail company. We are based in Ireland and we're specialized in books, stationery, and gifts. It was founded on 1819, so more than 200 years of history right now. We have around 60 stores, all in Ireland, and we're actually the leading retailer for books on the country. It's a large company. We currently employ over 600 people, and in addition to our physical stores, we also have our e-commerce. And it's a very seasonal business, I would say, because of course, during back to school, Cyber Week, and Christmas, it's our busiest period. So I think it's a very well known brand. So I hope people know.
Perfect. Thank you, Gabriella. And then Emma, if you want to tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah, so Waters Technology, I work for them in Wexford, and it's a multinational company headquartered in America. So there's plants worldwide, and it's the world's leading specialty measurement company. So in Waters Wexford, there's I think just over 400 employees, and a little bit of how supply chain works in Waters. So there's kind of three different sectors. There's the logistics side, there's the planning side, and the purchasing side. So um, as it's a very large company, there's separate buyer planners for the larger manufacturing areas, and then for the smaller manufacturing areas, there's buyer planners are in the one role. Um, and that's kind of how supply chain kind of is summed up in Waters Wexford.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And then Keith, you can take us through Mitchells and Sons.
So we are a small to medium sized enterprise. We have 4 stores and one to do paid warehouse, probably roughly around 29 staff members. We source wines from all over the world, from Greece to USA, to New Zealand. Um, our supply chain is quite complex because we have to deal with climate climate change issues. Um, our 4 stores are there's 2 in Dublin, there's 1 in County Meath, there's 1 in Wexford, and the duty paid warehouse is in Sandyford. Mitchell and Son was established in 1805 and it's currently Ireland's only wine and spirit merchant. It's the oldest wine and spirit merchant in Ireland and it's currently run by its 6th and 7th generations of the Mitchells family.
So again, to anybody there in our audience, we can see there's 3 completely different organizations, very successful organizations in Ireland, different supply chain makeups as well, which is what we would naturally expect. There's lots of different supply chains. We'll get into it a little bit more later, how much is done in-house, if anybody is doing any of theirs externally or has consultancy. It's such a varied industry, so we would never expect 2 supply chains to ever look the same, which is what makes it exciting and makes the roles interesting, because even if you change role within the company, there's still going to be so much different projects and exciting business to be working on. But before we get into more about the supply chains, let's find out a little bit more about our panelists. So how they came to be in supply chain, because I know my story personally. I did not leave school expecting to go into logistics or supply chain. It's not something I was aspiring to when I was filling out my CEO or going to careers days. It's actually something I didn't know anything about. I fell into the industry, like a lot of people you'll talk to in the industry will tell you. I didn't know what I wanted to do leaving school. And I took a year out and decided to do a little bit more research. And that's when I came across the bachelor's level 8 in logistics and supply chain management in TU Dublin, which was the entry route I took into the industry before going on to complete my master's in strategic management. And I absolutely fell in love with logistics and just the variety of it, how much there is, how much you can get opportunities to travel, you can get opportunities to work with so many amazing companies, amazing different departments, and everyone in the industry is just so helpful and so supportive. So that's a little bit about how I ended up in the industry. As I say, kind of more accidental than on purpose. But let's find out about how our panelists did. So if you want to give kind of a brief intro to maybe, did you ever want to go into logistics and supply chain? Was it something maybe you decided later on after doing something first that caught your interest? Look, just let people know kind of the different routes and what you did to get into the industry and maybe how you got into your job that you're in today as well. So we'll change it up for a change. So we'll start with Emma this time.
So I'm actually new enough to supply chain within the last year in Waters. I actually started in 2019 as a column manufacturer and left then for a year to do a postgraduate diploma in teaching in further education. But it actually wasn't really for me, to be honest. I enjoyed the course, but not the career side of the things. So I went back to Waters then, column manufacturing again. And when I enjoyed it, I kind of wanted to do something else as well in the long run. So I started researching different careers. And it's something that most people have heard of supply chain, but something I didn't really know much about. So when kind of reading into it, I started realizing, oh, that sounds like something I'd really, really enjoy. So, but again, because I'd done 2 courses and I didn't end up working in the sector, I didn't want to rush into just doing another course. So I was looking for some experience in supply chain before I went and did the master's. So I actually emailed the director of supply chain in Waters because I was in that company. It was easier to go that way, that route, than external. And I was lucky able to be taken up as a summer intern. And then while I was up there last July, the role actually came up. So I applied and got the job then. So that's kind of how I got into it. And when I was in, I realized I absolutely loved every aspect of the job. I really did, which was surprising. It's just I had never really thought of it as a career until I actually got into it. And then I went and realized now that I love it, I'm definitely going to do the course. So I've been completing the Masters in Supply Chain Management now since September, so on the way, almost there, thank God. But yeah, it's really enjoyable, and I really do enjoy it as a career.
And tell us, how are you finding the Masters? Would you recommend it?
Yeah, because it's really good to have on the CV. It's just something there that you'll always have and you'll never regret doing. But I will say working full time while doing it is very intense. But there's a lot in the course, but it's very interesting. And as well, even if you just did the course before actually working in supply chain, it really does kind of prepare you for a future in it. You'll be familiar with all the terms. So the way I kind of see it, I think it's better to get some experience first and see do you like it before rushing into a course. But equally, everybody's different, and that's how I did it. And yeah, so it's definitely going to be worth it in the end.
You're almost there. You'll get through it now.
Yeah.
But I suppose it is one of those tricky questions, and I'll ask the other two speakers as well when they get a chance. Do you think it benefited more, or depending on your experience, kind of getting the experience in the industry first and deciding you like it before committing to studying it, or the other way around? Would you have studied it first and then ended up? I know myself personally, I ended up going into the 4 years bachelor's with very little experience in logistics or supply chain, or even knowledge of what it was. I was working in retail for a year. I took a gap year after my leaving cert and worked full time in retail. And that was kind of my first introduction to supply chain, in a sense of I was in charge of doing stock orders and stock takes and replenishment. And that was kind of my idea of what supply chain was at that stage and very early on. But then it wasn't until I reached my third year of my degree program before I really got out and got the work experience and really appreciated just how varied the industry can be. So it's good to hear that side of it, Emma, as well, that you've come up that path and had kind of the best of both. You've seen it before committing to it as well. So thank you very much. So Keith, do you want to tell us what you did to get into the industry?
So when I finished my leaving cert in 2010, I went straight into third level education where I wanted to study physics and astronomy. Unfortunately, I was unable to receive any grants or funding to help me along with the costs, and I ended up leaving probably about a year later. And that's when I started my supply chain journey. I started as an agency worker in a bonded warehouse, and from there I was hired full time through goods inwards before I became operations manager of the warehouse about 5 years later. And in 2021, after 11 years with my former employer, is when I became the warehouse manager at Mitchell & Son. But in 2020 is when I started the LAA apprenticeship in TU Dublin. And I graduated with first class honours in 2022, also receiving the gold medal for Logistics Supply Chain Excellence and a trophy for Logistics Apprentice of the Year. The thing I love most about supply chain is complexity. I enjoy problem solving. I like when things go wrong, and I like being the person being able to fix it. That's pretty much my journey so far. And look, I hope that I'm currently doing my Bachelor's of Honours. I might take a year out before I do the Masters. Let's see, because it is, as Emma said, it can be intense working full time while doing a college degree as well, because some things have to change, whether that's home life, personal life. So it can be quite intense.
Thanks, Keith. And I suppose before I move on to Gabriella, it's probably worth letting people know, for anyone who doesn't know, maybe a little bit more about what the Logistics Associate Apprenticeship is. So obviously for anyone who doesn't know, to give a little intro to it, it's an earn as you learn program. So it obviously gives you the opportunity that 4 days a week you're in the workplace and 1 day a week doing your studies. So to come back to Keith's earlier point about the grants and the financial side of going into third level, can be quite difficult for people, especially if you're not eligible for any of those grants, to have to pay 4 years worth of fees. Some people will have to take out student loans. Some people will be trying to work while balancing full-time university. So it's good to give people an idea of those other options that are out there. So if you just want to give a few words of your own, Keith, of what the apprenticeship is and why it suited you, what the benefits are, that would be great. Oh, did we lose him? Oh, he's back.
Sorry, yeah, to be honest, I found it greatly beneficial, because when you're in the supply chain environment, when you're also working and doing the LAA, it helps you focus on the sort of techniques that do and do not fit that environment. Learning as you earn is a great way to build experience, to build your academics, and to be honest, it helped me organize and structure a lot of the ideas that I had flying around my head, and it really, really helped. It helped me make mistakes, which is very important, especially in the workplace. But it also helped me fix those mistakes as well, which is essentially how we grow as people.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Keith, for that insight. Finally, then, Gabriella, so your route into supply chain and your job, please.
Yeah, so I always like logistics, but I never considered that as a professional, to be honest. I am, well, not from Ireland, I'm from Brazil, and in Brazil I used to work in a health insurance company as market intelligence and branding. So I worked like this for 8 years, which gave me a very good analytic background. But then I decided I wanted to move to another place. So when I moved to Ireland, I started to work at Isons as an e-commerce operator. So I was just doing the picking, the scanning, the packing of the orders. It was a very simple job, but I always try to do like my best at the job and show my skills when I have the chance. And then after I have the opportunity to work as a supply chain analyst because of my analytics background, and I just find myself like I say, oh, that's what I want to do for life. That's what I like, And I think when you choose to do the bachelor, like I did my bachelor in public relations, I think we're too young and we need to choose something. So I just want to say that it's just fine if you change your mind after, like I started in supply chain when I was already 32, and I think it's totally fine if you don't feel that what you're doing is right for you, if you don't feel that you're happy with this, it's never too late to change. So you can just start it again, like it's better to do something you like. And of course, if you feel fulfilled or if you feel the joy to do it, it's much better. So it was never an option. Actually, it was just given the opportunity. And then by luck, I say, oh, I think that's what I like. Things that I want to do. And then since then, I have worked really hard. I try always to find the solutions to. Since then, I am studying a lot because I know it's something new for me. And I know that we learn a lot by doing, but at the same time, it's good to have, that learning background that helps you to make less mistakes since you know what you're doing a little bit better. So I try since then. I have done a lot of courses and a lot of things to help me in this new thing for me. And yeah, and then a year ago, I had the chance to become a manager. So it's a lot of learning in a short period, but I really enjoy. I think I think that the key here is that, like you need to find something you like it. So if you have to change later, don't worry, when you do bachelor's, we're too young and it's easy to change your mind, after, yeah.
Brilliant. I think that's a really good point to raise, especially for anybody at any point of their career, that it's never too late. You can change at any point. There's so many different opportunities. You can go back to education at any point. You can try different roles. Even you might join a company like Emma did under one role and then completely change department and into something completely different. And another thing for us in the industry is, I don't think, and I think our speakers will agree, I don't think we're ever done with our learning journey, whether it be short courses, whether it be our own research or learning from our colleagues. There's always something new to learn. There's always different things changing, whether it be regulation changes. Obviously, we've all come up against Brexit over the last couple of years in some way, shape or form. It's going to have impacted on everybody's operations. So even that is a learning journey for everyone in the industry. But that's the exciting bit.
And I think the learning don't come just for courses or anything like this. So, for example, recently I have asked for a branch market to wait Arnold's, for example. So they visit our warehouse. I visit theirs warehouse. So you can always learn from, your colleagues, your picks. So it's not just a course or something. You have a lot of ways to learn. It's, it's just to be open and wanting to do that,
I think that's really great to raise as well. And like most companies are open like that to sharing best practice. So it's really good to see that you've had positive engagement with other colleagues as well for being able to share that knowledge.
Yeah, I also fully agree. When I was with my former employer, I was there for 11 years. So no experience in a supply chain environment is a bad experience. Yeah. But believe me, I was definitely showed how not to do things. To be honest, which was greatly beneficial to me because it showed me best practice of what I believe was the right thing to be doing. And yeah, it's fantastic.
I think definitely we can all attest to that. We've all learned the wrong way to do things much quicker than we've learned the right way, but it's all a learning journey. And that's the best part of it, is you have to make those mistakes. Things do need to go wrong for us to be able to realize, well, what does work and how we can rectify that going forward. So I suppose then we'll get a little bit more technical about it now, and we'll ask the panelists, what does a day in your job look like? So maybe, as we say, there's probably no 2 days that are stereotypically the same, but maybe you can give like even a general insight into what your week looks like. Are you on site visits? Are you on operations? Are you working with other teams within your company? Is there reports involved? Kind of just a generic, maybe a week in the life in your job. So we'll start off with Keith there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, as Megan touched on, no 2 days are the same really, and same no 2 weeks are the same. So I'll give you an insight to currently what I'm doing. So I'm primarily based in the warehouse that's in Sandyford, where I look after ensuring that KPIs are being reached, like order accuracy, order fulfillment, and procurement also. But I'm currently also overseeing the integration of a new, reliable and trusted and more sustainable courier team for our Dublin operations. And I've been spending a bit of time recently in our head office working on sustainability initiatives, and also just trying to make cost cutting as effective as possible in order to like increase our competitiveness, because after all, we are an SME in the Irish wine industry, so it's very, very competitive.
Brilliant. Thank you, Keith. And Emma, if you want to tell us about your week.
Yeah, so I'll kind of go through my previous role as supply chain specialist first. So a typical day for me would start off with KPI reporting. So I send out the weekly reports. Most of them were done on a Monday and a Tuesday. So that's kind of how my Monday and Tuesday were filled up with reports. As a specialist, I was also support to the indirect procurement side of the business. So each day I just log on to that a couple of times a day and put through some purchase recs for people. And for those who aren't familiar, I suppose, with indirect procurement, that's purchasing items that don't directly go into manufacturing. So that's what I was kind of doing as a specialist. And in the last couple of weeks, I've changed to a buyer planner role for informatics. So now my day looks quite different. I don't have the reports to do. So, and I'm also away from the indirect procurement and moving towards the direct buy-in side. So each day I kind of would start off my day checking production and seeing what's been completed, what needs to be completed. I'd cut the orders needed as per customer orders. And I also check the what needs to be ordered, like have we run out of things? Is there a constraint? And as Waters is such a large plant with like so many parts to set up, there's always that side where I'll be setting up new parts on the system. So that takes up a good chunk of my week as well. A couple of days dedicated to that, just setting up new parts and organizing them with the vendors as well. So that's a typical day as a buyer planner.
Thank you, Emma. And Gabriella.
Well, supply chain is a very dynamic job, so it's never the same. It changes a lot for me, especially when it's the busy period or not. So, for example, just recently, the government said that in the budget for this year, they're going to give the primary schools books. So it's completely changed our routine for the school books. But in January, I can work from home. I can work for the head office, but like 90% of my time, I will be in the warehouse. I like to be there. I like to see what's going on, be close to the team as well. Well, we work Monday to Friday business hours, but the warehouse is always open for like 14 hours a day. And during the busy period, it's even more. And always in the beginning of the day, we start with a huddle with the whole team. So it's basically like, where is the priorities of the day? Where is the volumes? If e-commerce is extremely busy or if any other area of the B2B are extremely busy, we just reorganize together the resources and what will be the priorities of the day. So I think that's the first key thing about supply chain. Is a very social job. You have to communicate the chain. So you have to talk to everybody. You have to be in contact with everybody. So I think the communication is the key. I think it's really important to communicate with your team, with the people that work with you. So for example, I try to do weekly meetings with my buyer teams, with finance, with HR, everyone, to make sure that we are always aligned. So it's a lot of communication and weekly meetings to catch up and everything. I do have a big team, like 11 people that report to me. So like most of my day, I'm normally talking to the team, managing them, see if like what needs to be done, directly the needs, like people management, all this thing. It takes a lot of my day, but I also spend a lot of time with the data. So forecasting, planning, what needs to be done, if we need more resources, if not, like try to plan the best as we can. And yeah, I think that one personal tip myself is that always in the beginning of the week, I try to do a list of everything that I have to do. It makes easier for me to see the priorities of the week and to make sure I don't get lost with everything that I have to do. But yeah, it's basically people management, communication, and a lot of data.
I think that's a really good point to stress there. It's probably more a priority list than a full to-do list, because I don't think we ever get to the end of our to-do list.
Finish the list. No, never.
You just have to roll it over to the following week and reprioritize.
I feel that lost of time on the Mondays. I'm just repeating the previous week, but it is what it is. And sometimes you say, oh, this week I'm going to do this. Perfect. And then everything is thrown up to you and you have new priorities. But it's fine. It's just a matter of finding what the priorities is and make sure you work on this.
Exactly. I think that's another thing we can say, is that it's just about having a realistic expectation going into your week or into your job, is that things will not always go to plan. New priorities will come up. I'm sure, Emma, you can tell us if something goes down in manufacturing, you've got to be really reactive, or if parts aren't coming in and a line has to stop. Like, that's obviously going to completely shift what your week or day might look like.
Yeah, so as you were saying, Gabrielle, actually, it's very there's a lot of meetings actually as well. I left that part out, so that's a good chunk of your day as well. So you have meetings with production to see how they're doing as a planner. So then you'll have meetings with your suppliers to see like what they have kind of in stock and how everything's going. And if you have a constraint, that could delay production. So you need to be on top of those as well. So you need to be working with the supplier to try and get those materials in. See, can you expedite them as fast, get them in as needed. So there's a lot of kind of the social aspect of it is definitely a lot there as well. So,
but I think it's safe to say, even though it's social, it's probably you have a very strong team, even interdepartmental teams, that everybody has to understand the supply chain. Even if they're not directly in the supply chain, they need to know how it affects their role as well, so that they can support.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, that people do need to be aware. And that's why so many people are brought into the meetings as well from production. There's the team leaders, there's the managers, there's all the supervisors. Then the team would also be told as well, order prioritization, what needs to be done and when. So everyone kind of does, you all need to be working together for it. So a lot of communication needs to be around that.
There's definitely, as we can see, a lot of meetings, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails. I think we could say communication is definitely key to any of our roles, whether it be logistics or supply chain or transport or warehousing. And what about Keith? Can you give us a little insight? Maybe if something goes wrong, do you guys have to react and follow up?
One of the biggest tools you'll need when in the supply chain is you need to have a phone with a good battery life. That's 100%. We hold weekly meetings as well. Try find out what is working, what's not working, how can we improve things. Continuous improvement is one of the biggest things that we try to advocate within our own organization, is how can we be better, how can we improve things, how can we be more sustainable. So apart from the disruption that goes on throughout the supply chain, it's also important to focus on those internal issues as well.
I think that's another point to raise as well, is we're here talking about when things go wrong and how things don't go into plan, how reactive we are. But I think often as well, at times we forget to focus on what is actually working really well for us, and to be able to have those meetings that are positive engagement to say, well, keep doing this because this is working really well for us, or we can learn a lot from this going well and take it forward. So it's not all doom and gloom in logistics and supply chain. We do have the positive element to it.
Yeah, at ESOSB we use KPIs daily. So our analytics team send daily KPIs, and we normally say that like each area of the warehouse has their own KPIs, and then it will show in red if it was a good performance, and if it was a bad performance, and in green if it was a good. But the thing is, normally we just think about, oh, when it's red, we need to think what to get better. But also we need, like, when it's green, like, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing, because it's working. So I think those kind of things, like those KPIs we use, those kind of things we use, it's also to see when it's working well as well. It's say, whatever you changed yesterday, keep doing. It's working well, So I think this is also very helpful for us to see. And it's good, for example, at least for us now, it's a very quiet period. So it's a good period to try new things, So we always say, let's try new process, let's try new things. And then those KPIs help us to see, oh, yesterday was a good day or it was not a good day. So we can see what's working good for us, and then we can apply this to when it's busy, and it's going to be very useful for us.
Definitely. I mean, Gabrielle, do you just want to let anybody know who's joined us today, maybe who doesn't know what a KPI is, to maybe just explain it a little bit?
So you can have several KPIs. KPIs is the key performance indicators. So you can have KPIs for a lot of things. For example, in the warehouse, we do have KPIs for slow sellers, for stock that's there for a while. Like we do have orders that are fulfilled in time. Like we do have a lot of them, but our main KPI would be the performance one. So each area of the warehouse, so e-commerce, our stock it, goods out, our cross-dock it, goods out, or Promac, all of them, they have a performance KPI. So it's basically how much person is doing a day. And then we have our own targets based on the budget as well. So we know that based on the budget, we need to be able to produce that much. And we send this daily. So our performance KPIs is definitely the most important one. And this show how much we're producing a day per area per person. And it really helps us to see how we can be more effective. So when you see that something is working well and the numbers are better, we know that we can change our practice to make it better.
Brilliant. Thank you. I suppose, Emma and Keith, do you want to tell us a little bit? Do you guys work off KPIs as well? Does the business, when in your team, maybe how that looks for you?
Yeah. So my role actually as the previous specialist was actually sending out the KPI reports weekly for the business. So that's for mainly supply chain, but also other areas to see how they're performing. So I'd send out, for example, the on-time delivery report. So like our orders out on time and things like that, where we need to work on. So it's kind of just showing weaknesses in areas and strengths in other areas. So that's kind of highlighting what needs to be done and what we're doing well. That's kind of summarizing what KPIs are. And we had various reports showing that for different areas. So like you said, Gabrielle, our warehouse, we have some for those. We have production, we've planning KPIs, we have purchasing KPIs, just various ones that you need to be checking weekly to see, are we on track?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Brilliant. Thank you, Emma. And Keith, do you want to give us an insight into KPIs you use?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to Emma. The perfect order fulfillment, making sure the stock that we received in is correct, checked accurately, put into correct locations so it can be picked easier and delivered to the consumer in full and correctly. We obviously, our sales executives have sales targets that they need to reach. And one of the biggest KPIs, although it's hard to measure, is positivity and ensuring that the environment within the buildings is a positive one that promotes improvement and enjoyability, because it's one of the biggest things, especially in a supply chain environment. It can be stressful, so you need to keep positivity continuously going within the company.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that, Keith? That's a very unusual one now. In all my years in supply chains and logistics, I've seen many a KPI, but positivity now, I'd be interested in knowing, how do you guys measure that? Is it just feedback from the staff, or is there an actual metric for it?
Well, as I said, like, it's really hard to measure. Like, first thing on my to-do list every day is to promote happiness, kind of. And look, it can't be measured, but you can see it through people's facial expressions, through their smiles, their attitudes, and how they conduct themselves around their business environment. And to be honest, it's the environment within Mitchell & Son is fantastic. It promotes growth and it facilitates the process of being able to continuously improve and help other people and help yourself as well. So although it can't exactly be measured, it can be noticed.
I think it's good even just that you're aware of it. And I'm sure the two girls can attest as well. You know, even one person having a bad day can have an impact on teams. And as we say, because it's all about communication and teamwork, you kind of have to support each other. There might be days where you're not feeling 100% and someone picks up the slack a little bit for you, and then vice versa on a day that maybe they're struggling or they need support. You'll always get a lot of support, a lot of people who are willing to jump in, help, especially if times are tough or it's under pressure.
Definitely, I see that with the buyer and planner roles, because buyers and planners have to work so closely together. So you need to know where they're at, and they need to know where you're at all stages. So you do need to keep in contact with them and be aware of how they're getting on and help them if needed. So buyers and planners do kind of work together that way. So they do support each other. So that's a good thing to actually. That's a good point to make.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emma. And I suppose now if we look at something a little bit more different and go back, and some people in the audience, maybe they're in a career in logistics and supply chain, maybe they're looking for some inspiration around a different role or a different area in the business. So I'd like to ask our speakers here today, what do you enjoy the most about your role in supply chain? So we will get Emma can start us off there.
So I like how versatile my day is, and like you've said already, no 2 days are the same, because I do like solving problems, and each day you literally have something you haven't come across before. And I do think that it's a complex job. There's a lot to learn, but like you said as well, we're always learners, and that's good. So there's so many different areas in it you can go into. I love how I've kind of learned a couple of different roles. So I went in as an intern. I've got good experience, and there's so much experience to be had in supply chain. So like you can, the logistics side, I'm not familiar with myself, but there's so much in that is different completely to what planners do, and then buyers, and so it's just so many different roles, and that's why I like how versatile it is. And there's great career progression opportunities in it. So you can go in as a junior, you can progress to a senior, become a manager, a director. You can open your own consultancy. There's so many different things with supply chain, so it's really good that way.
I suppose while I can see here in the chat we're on the topic, there's a question for you there, Emma. If you had to pick, which role do you prefer most that you've done?
Definitely the one I'm going into myself, because I like organizing my own suppliers. I like working with people closely, kind of building relationships with suppliers, whereas they're in the indirect side of procurement that I was doing previously as a specialist. Um, you don't communicate as much with the suppliers as you would now. You don't build personal relationships with them, because there's so many that you're just putting them through for the whole business as a whole. Like, for example, someone could raise a purchase rec for one area of the business, and they know the supplier but you don't. You're only putting it through for them, so you're not really communicating with the suppliers. Whereas when you're a buyer or planner, you have your own set of suppliers that you communicate on a daily basis. You do get to know them. I know in Waters we have meetings. They come down to our plant a couple of times a year, and then we go visit them, so we get to see how their side works. They get to see how our side works, and we just kind of get to know them better on a personal level. So yeah, there's also the travel aspect of it as well. So there's that. So I do prefer the buy-in plan, and there's more opportunities for travel within the buy-in sector. So
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And Gabriella, what's your favorite part?
Sorry, I was having problem to unmute myself. So okay. I think it's very, as we're saying, it's very dynamic. I think everyone's agrees with that. So every day we have to deal with new challenges. Every day we have to have created solutions to how to solve your problems, and it's a lot of chance to grow and to learn every single day. And it's never boring. Sometimes it's stressful, but boring definitely no. And I am a very social person, so for me, the chance to be talking to basically all the areas of the company and working together and learning with the people, it's something that really attracts me to supply chain. It's super nice that one day I'm talking to markets team and then I'm learning something new. Then the other day I'm talking to IT a lot as well, and I can learn a lot of new things every day. I think it's nice to meet people, to learn with them. If you're open to learn, you can learn a lot from this. And I think definitely the most thing that I like is it's a job that you can see the results, like you can physically see the results, So when I'm in the warehouse and I can see that everything's organized, the things are in the right location, the orders are being sent, it's very rewarding to see the results, I feel a little bit that I can see that our team is making the difference in the company, that we're making a better job. the job that we do impacts a lot on the customer experience, the customer service, because if you try to fulfill the orders fast, like you have a better service. For example, our e-commerce, we have the target to send everything placed up to 6 p.m. on the same day, and 98% of the cases next day delivery. Of course, we have high standards. We're now sending everything up to 8 p.m. But it's like to see that, you see the results of what you're doing. It's very rewarding. And I think in supply chain, you can see a lot of this.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Keith?
Yeah, as the girls mentioned, it's like you have so many opportunities to learn from different departments, and it obviously improves your experience within it. I really enjoy the complexity, like unraveling. Like it kind of brings me back to the want to study astronomy. It's just so many things need to be in tandem in order for a supply chain to be as efficient as possible. But unraveling the things that can go wrong and to try and stay proactive in that approach is it's challenging, but it's really enjoyable. And as Gabriella just said, it's you can measure your performance, which is it's good for your ego, especially if things are going right. Like it can, and it improves your confidence. It makes you want to take more risks. And well, look, taking risks is good. They don't always work out, but it still needs to be done.
I think definitely we're all somewhat competitive people. I think human nature is always wanting to strive to do better. So when we have a lot of KPIs, as we mentioned earlier, and as Keith has just said there, you can really see what's working well. And obviously that just encourages you to keep wanting to improve. Gabriella, you say you have 98% are sent out on time. I'd say you're still always striving that one day you'll get to the 100%. 98 will not be good enough.
Yeah, but this is like, of course, we depend a lot on like our carriers. So for example, we play everything placed up to 8 p.m., leave the warehouse in the same day, but then we need to depend on posts and our couriers to delivery. But we are always looking for new solutions, like, so for example, we really want to do same day delivery. We're looking for partners that are willing to try this, so every day you need to be looking for new solutions, and it's very nice. Yeah, we're always looking for that 2% that's missing. Yeah.
Yeah, especially the way, well, since COVID, people, especially in retail and e-commerce, they want their products yesterday. So you always have to strive to listen to the customer, try facilitate what they want, and if you can improve that in any way and make good steps on what's already a previous practice, the enjoyment and like the recognition from the customers that you get from that is fantastic, because at the end of the day in the supply chain, it's really the consumer who has the biggest effect on your whole operation.
I would definitely say for sure. And I think since COVID, what I experienced anyway in previous roles was the new level of now managing the customer expectation, because obviously everything we do is to satisfy the customer needs. But as things get quicker, as next day delivery becomes delivery within a couple of hours, we have to also work around those challenges of there's only so much we can improve at this stage of time as we wait on new technologies to come out or new solutions to be developed. So it's definitely a fine balance between them all.
Just to add to that, actually, Megan, as well, most supply chains are generally done in quarters, and as it's like border end now, you'll notice that as well. It does, you have to work really hard towards the last week in the quarter, like obviously throughout the whole quarter, but you'll notice it can get a little bit stressful towards the end because the amount of orders that could come in last minute and customers don't know what's going on internally. So you have to, know what's going on and organize that order to be done on time, things like that. So that's another point to make on quarters in supply chain.
Definitely. And I suppose then to pose another question before we come up towards the end, we've spoken about our favorite parts of supply chain and what works well, but we won't say our least favorite. But if we're to say maybe about one challenge that we face, whether it be in your role specifically or a challenge that you feel is facing supply chain at the moment, what would you say it would be? So Emma, if you want to kick us off there.
Generally, just while I do enjoy the ad hoc things, but there could be something that could be completely different and things like that. So you have to expect the unexpected, I think, in supply chain. So that's kind of one the main challenge. You don't know what's going to come at you in a day. So, you could get something that you really could be stuck on. You'll have to go and ask someone. That's okay too. You do work together, and people are generally very friendly. They will help you. So that's definitely one of the issues that you could come across. Just things you don't know. And like I said before, you're literally learning supply chain the whole time. There's so much stuff coming up. So that's one of the issues that I sometimes could face.
Brilliant. And Keith?
As Gabriella touched on, like there's certain elements you can control. Like for example, let's say you can control 80% of your supply chain. It's the 20% that's unpredictable or in the hands of somebody else. Like I had this supplier tell me before that the stock was in God's hands when I had asked them for an ETA. Like it can be relying on other people to try and keep the same high standards as your own organization, which can be a problem. People don't like change, but change needs to happen.
I think that's another thing we've all faced in supply chain is we've all heard every reason and every excuse under the sun why something has gone wrong in the supply chain. There's definitely a lot like that out of our hands, whether it be down to even simple things like the weather affecting transport, maybe a ferry didn't sail, maybe there was a problem with a machine in production. There's so many different factors that we can do all the best work in the world, and if one little thing in our supply chain comes out of line, it has a domino effect on the rest. So it's definitely a challenge that everybody faces in their role every single day of the week in supply chain. But Gabriella, what about yours specifically?
Yeah, I totally agree with Keith. Like, at the same time, that's super nice to talk to a lot of people and learn a lot. It's really hard to depend on people to do your job. And I think, like, for example, when you're trying to manage your capacity, when you're trying to manage something and you have like non-book deliveries, this happen all the time. So like I have planned my resources to do that amount of work, and then suddenly you have a lot of new things to do and you don't have the space and you don't have planned it. It's stressful. Like it's hard to be depending on other people. And if I have a delivery that's not booked, I can't just say no because I need that stock. So have to deal with those things could be hard. It's definitely the part of the job that I don't like the most. And but in general, it's just it's hard, as I said, like a lot of factors that it's in our control. So for example, a lot of our deliveries come from China, so we are ready for this for months and months, and when your need's not there, and then suddenly you have 2 containers coming your way, and and you're not expecting for this. So it's really hard to deal with the unpredictable. At the same time, that's challenge. It could be sometimes is a way to challenge.
Brilliant. Thank you. And just as we wrap it up there, I'll pose one more question to our panelists. I see there's a couple of questions coming into the chat. We won't get through all of them, but we'll definitely follow up with people who have more specific questions afterwards. So our final question then for today to the panelists is, what piece of advice would you give people who are considering a career in supply chain? So if anyone wants to jump in first, I'll leave it open to the panel.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a very rewarding career and to definitely go for it. But as I said previously, I do think that you should try and get some experience, and there's so many good internships out there. So many different companies will offer different internship programs for logistics, for buying planning, and it's a really good way to just see do you like it before you do the course. And it's very rewarding and enjoyable career with plenty of career progression opportunities. So definitely is something worth thinking about.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Emma.
I fully agree. Being in any sort of supply chain environment, as I said earlier on, any experience, it's not a bad one. But if you find yourself in a supply chain environment, question everything. Find out as much as you can. Like I know people say there's no such thing as stupid question, but essentially there is. But you can question everything to gain your own experience, and especially if you're doing the LAA associate program through whichever college is you can facilitate learning as you're working in that environment. It helps you retain the information, it helps you grow as a person, and it helps you improve not only the company that you're in, but potential for yourself to move higher and higher throughout the supply chain environment.
Brilliant. Thank you, Keith. And Gabriella.
Yeah, I think from my side, I'll give a few advice based on my own experience. So the first one I have already mentioned is that it's never too late to change. So don't be afraid of changes. It's better to change than to stay in a place that you don't feel happy about it, you know. Another thing that I would definitely say is that don't focus your studies and your capacity just in supply chain specifically. You also need to invest a lot in your own personal development. So I can feel that for me, for example, it's very useful now to learn like some leadership skills, some presentation skills. You know, I have done my post-graduation in design thinking. It's like not to do just supply chain specifically, but work in your own personal development. It's always, I would say that's a good idea. Another thing that I would definitely say is that don't let your fear stop you. So, for example, for me personally, it's extremely hard because English is not my native language. So I doubted myself a lot of times, like, am I saying this right? Am I going to look stupid? You know, like those kind of things. But you need to know that your results and your personality and this needs to be stronger than that. So don't be afraid. Just go, just try it. It will be worth it. And I think that my last but probably most important advice is to work hard. A lot of people can say that I'm lucky because someone noticed me to give me the opportunity, and it's true, I agree. But at the same time, I think I build my own lucky by working hard every day, by showing my skills every day, by trying every day. So at some point, I think that people just realize that, oh, whatever we throw to her, she would do her best. He would try as maximum to work hard. So I think we all need to build a little bit of our own lucky to have the opportunity. So everything that you will do, try to do your best. And I think this when you never regret doing this, you know.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Gabriella and Emma and Keith today for all your amazing insight into your careers in supply chain and your own experience. I hope everybody was able to take something away with them there today. And as everyone knows who is registered, or maybe they don't, this week is Logistics and Supply Chain Skills Week. So it only kicked off today. So there is a packed calendar full of events. There's 35 plus events happening throughout the week. So definitely lots of other opportunities to learn a little bit more about maybe some educational offerings, some career opportunities, some graduate programs. There's webinars and in-person events covering off all of those different areas. You can go on to www.gov.ie/logistics week, and that will give you a calendar of all the events happening this week. So I'd like to say thank you once again to our panelists, and thank you to all our attendees who have joined us here today, and to Performance SC for setting up this fantastic webinar. So thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at more events.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
And I can see some doubts here about warehouse management. If you want to contact my LinkedIn or anything like this, I'll be happy to answer any question.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gabriella. And of course, if anyone wants to reach out, you can add myself as well on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to follow up on anything apprentice-based, so whether it be the LAA or the Commercial Driving and Transport Operations apprenticeship from both an employer and apprentice sector.
Equally the same for me, so you can reach me on my LinkedIn is the best way to reach me.
And also myself, Keith Donahue, that's my name. Unusual spelling of the second name, but look, you'll find me. So.
Well, brilliant. Thank you to all our attendees, and thank